Hello and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Medieval Dynasty and I'm going to be showing you all of the clothing and armor in the game, just giving you a little peek at what they all look like. So if you wanted any sort of a guide on how to get to the point where you could make any of these things, or in the instances where they are purchasable, where you could buy them around the map, and this is on the Oxbow map, you can feel free to let me know down in the comment section. I'm playing this game, so I want to make some content for it, so if you've got any specific recommendations for things you'd like to see, you can do that. But for today, I'm just going to show you what the actual clothing and armor options are in this game. So I'll go through all the clothing first and then all the armor. So let's just dive into that. This right here is the basic clothing. It's, well, you know, the name of it kind of gives away what it is. It's very basic. It's made up of only 4 pieces: the basic hat, which is a straw hat, the basic shirt, the basic shoes, and the basic trousers. So you can't really get any more basic than this, so I feel like it was appropriately named. So that's our first outfit. Next up we have the light clothing, and there's actually 2 variants of this one. So we have the male variant, which you see before you here, which just looks kind of like the basic stuff, but maybe slightly improved. And then we have the female variant here, which you can see just has a dress instead of a tunic. And so you can see that the items that make up this outfit are, it's once again 4 items, or 5 if you count the other variant. So we have the light hat, the light shoes, light trousers, light tunic, and or the light dress, which then gives us our female variant. So like I said, slightly better or more advanced looking than the basic, but still fairly simple. Next up we have the simple clothing, which gets just a little bit more advanced than the other 2 that we've looked at so far, having an extra item, and we once again have 2 variants. So this one here is the male variant, and then we have the female variant, which once again just swaps out the tunic for a dress. So this one actually has 5 parts. So we have 1 more part, which is the hood, but we have the simple coif for our headwear, the simple hood, simple shoes, simple trousers, and simple tunic, or the simple dress if you want the female variant. So like I said, it's still quite simple, you know, thus the name, but it looks a little bit better. We get a little bit more coverage, so there we don't have the lower half of our legs hanging out. We get an extra hood, and of course, instead of a straw hat, we have the coif. So I think this one's just overall better than the first 2 we looked at. Next up, we're looking at our first full set, one that fills every clothing slot, well, except for bags and backpacks and stuff. And this is the winter clothing. So I would say this one still looks fairly primitive, which is why I did it early like this, but it's definitely great for the winter, you know, if you're trying to stay warm. So it's got perks to it, and I think it roleplay wise looks like something a bandit or a hunter would wear. So, you know, if you're going for that, it definitely fits that vibe as well. This one does not have a female variant, but it's made up of, like I said, a full set, so it's 6 pieces. We have the winter bracers, which are gloves, winter hat, the winter coat, winter collar, winter shoes, and winter trousers. So like I said, definitely starting to get to the point where it feels like you're wearing a more comprehensive outfit when you're wearing the full winter set. Our next outfit follows the same vibe as the last one. This one is the warm clothing. So it's a slightly more civilized looking version of cold weather gear for Medieval Dynasty. So this is something that would probably be more appropriate to wear if you're not going for some sort of a outdoorsman or roguish vibe, if you're more of a wealthy city person or even just a farmer who lives in a city and so therefore, you know, has nicer textiles and such. The warm outfit is made up of, once again, 6 pieces. So we have the warm boots, warm coat, warm gloves, warm hat, warm shawl, and warm trousers. So entirely complete, and like I said, definitely looks a lot nicer and fancier than the winter set. So if you want to stay warm but you also want to look nice, this is the outfit for that. Next we move up to another partial set in the way that it doesn't have gloves, like a lot of the ones in this game do not have, but that makes sense considering gloves are really only an essential piece of clothing if you're in the winter most of the time. So this is the fine set. It has 2 variants. So before you here we have the male variant. You can see that it's once again just getting slightly fancier than the ones we've already looked at, and the female variant just swaps out the dress. Now of course it's entirely possible that if you wanted to look more feminine, you also probably would lose the hat, maybe even the hood, but whatever the case is, this set I think looks decent as far as, you know, a slightly more wealthy person in Medieval Dynasty would be, maybe a merchant or something like that, or a craftsman. So this is the fine clothing. Next we have the second most fancy clothing outfit before we start getting into armor. This one is the rich clothing. So this would be something associated with rich merchants or something like that. So non-noble people, but still quite wealthy who live in civilized society in Medieval Dynasty. So I think this one is starting to look pretty cool. You can see we've got well-woven stuff with, you know, extra details. We do have a full set here with gloves, hat, hood, boots, everything. We get some fur lining on the coat, which definitely makes it look fancier. Overall, definitely a very good looking outfit. This one is a full set, so it's made up of 6 pieces. We have the rich boots, the rich coat, rich gloves, rich hat, rich hood, and rich trousers. There is no female variant for the rich set, but like I said, looks pretty good in my opinion. So that's our rich set. And here we have our fanciest clothing one before we get into armor. This one is the noble set. So you can see, obviously we're getting to the point where it starts to look pretty fancy. We have a hat that appears to be mostly decorative with some ceremonial looks to it, so it's got some extra gilding on it. Looks like it was designed to be sort of fancy and maybe as a like a sign of office or something. Then we have a very decorative hood with some gold trim around it, which looks nice. A two-toned tunic, some nice comfortable looking hose, and noble looking shoes. So nothing too crazy about it, but it does look like something that you would not see a lot of people running around in. This one does have a female variant, which just lengthens the tunic into a dress, so, you know, if that's your thing. But it's made up of just 5 pieces because we don't have gloves, so if you want gloves with this one, you'll have to put the rich gloves or something on. But this one's the noble tunic, noble shoes, noble hose, noble hood, noble hat, and if you want it to be female, the noble dress. But that's our noble outfit, so now we're going to move on to our armor. Alright, so for our first suit of armor, we are looking at the thin gambeson armor. So this one is just slightly better than clothing in terms of damage resistance. It gives you a little bit of padding, and it's a gambeson type armor. So looks pretty basic, but to be fair, this is what you would probably see on the vast majority of levy troops, or even, you know, newer city guardsmen who don't have any money or haven't had the need to invest in heavier armor. So this is our thin gambeson armor. Interestingly enough, for all of the gambeson armor that we're going to be looking at, and there are 3 sets today, there are no pants for them. So I just pair the fine hose with them because I think they look good, and it makes sense that if you're at the point where you're starting to wear armor instead of regular clothing, that you'll have decent pants. So we have the fine hose, then we have the thin boots, thin gambeson, and thin gloves. That makes up the entire thin gambeson armor set. So like I said, very basic looking, but I think it looks decent because I like how gambeson looks. But that's our first of the armor sets. Next, we're moving up to what definitely appears to be a much more substantial gambeson armor, and this is the thick gambeson. So you can see we have a coif now as well. Our gloves are pretty substantial. We've got boots. We're still using the same pants, but other than that, it just looks like a very upgraded version of the gambeson, of the thin gambeson. So definitely a serious visual improvement. Again, like I said, we're using the fine hose for this one, but the pieces that make up the thick gambeson are the thick boots, thick coif, thick gambeson, and thick gloves. So you can see definitely a lot more solid looking armor than the thin. You can see we do have some damage resistance down here, so 12% slashing damage resistance, 6% bludgeoning damage resistance, and 26 cold protection. So that's another good thing about the gambeson armors. They give you more armor than clothing, and they also work pretty well for insulation during the winter months. So that's our thick gambeson. And for our third armor set, we're moving on to our best gambeson armor, the excellent gambeson. So this one, again, does not come with its own pants, but the rest of the items you see before you here are all part of this set, and I think it looked pretty freaking solid. I really like the way this one looks. So the parts that make it up are the excellent boots, excellent coif, excellent collar, excellent gambeson, excellent gloves, and once again, our fine hose. So, you know, we're just seeing an improvement over the last set as far as all of our damage resistances. So we get negative 15% heat protection on these ones, and plus 55% cold protection. So definitely a lot warmer clothing, but all of our damage resistances went up for each item, so it definitely offers better armor value than the ones we've already looked at. Plus, visually speaking, I think looks significantly better. So that's the excellent gambeson, the last of our, I guess you'd call it, light armors. Let's move on to our heavier armors now. So at our first for the heavy armors, we have the bronze armor, which is something that in the game you'll see most often on the higher tier bandits. So like the tough axemen and stuff like that are more likely to be wearing this. I don't think you'll really ever see it worn by any of the civilized people in any of the settlements, or at least not, you know, in the 6 years or whatever that I've played through on this world so far. So this is the bronze armor. I think it looks pretty cool. It's obviously, you know, a little out of place for the medieval setting because we're using a lot of early Iron Age styles, except it's using bronze instead of iron. So it's an interesting amalgamation of different things, placing it firmly in the category of fantasy armor in my opinion, but I think it looks decent enough and it doesn't clash too much with the setting. This one is made up of 5 pieces. We have the bronze armor, the bronze bracers, bronze greaves, bronze helmet, and bronze legwear. So you can see we've got pretty decent protections on this one, but the bronze armor offers inferior protection to the excellent gambeson, which is interesting. So that's something that I quite enjoy about the excellent gambeson. So, but with all that being said, that's the first of our heavy armors. Let's move on to the next one. So next up we have our iron armor, which you can see definitely is a visual improvement over the bronze armor, at least in terms of looking like something that would be worn in a medieval setting. You can see that it's mostly male. We have gambeson on the sleeves and the legs, which is interesting that we actually have that. Then we have iron for the gorget, the pauldrons, the gauntlets. We obviously have a iron helmet, and then we've got iron knee protection, which I'm not sure what that specific armor part is called, but then also iron greaves over our leather boots. So very comprehensive looking. I like the two-toned tabard underneath the like belts on it. Overall, I think it's actually a fairly well-designed suit of armor if you're going for something that would be relatively accurate to see in a, region like this on a higher end sort of warrior. This is possibly something you'd see on a poor knight in the medieval period. It's fairly good armor. It's obviously not great for like blunt protection against maces and stuff like that because we're not wearing a plate cuirass, but against all other damage types, this offers a significant amount of protection, and again, in my opinion, looks really, really good. So this one's made up of 5 pieces: the iron armor, iron bracers, iron greaves, iron helmet, and iron legwear. Protections are significantly better than the bronze one, so it definitely makes sense to upgrade when you can, because the iron armor not only looks a lot better and is more appropriate for the medieval setting, but also, like I said, offers significantly better protection, which you can see down here. The trade-off there is obviously it's quite heavy. So pretty good looking armor, at least in my opinion, offers good protection and fairly straightforward process to get this. Next, we are moving to our best suit of armor in the game and probably the coolest looking outfit in the game, at least if you are a fan of medieval armor, and we have the elite armor. So you can see it's quite the improvement over the iron armor. We have gone from just a chainmail hauberk with a tabard over top to having actual medieval brigandine armor, which you can see visible mail underneath and a gambeson underneath that. So we have 3 layers of armor here, so this would offer tremendous protection. We do not have a plate gorget, but we do have a mail coif down around our shoulders there, which would offer pretty good protection and could be pulled up over the head. On the helmet, you can see that it straps around. It is I think that's a type of bergenet, but I'm not 100% certain. It has the little decorative wreath around it, which is always fun. We do have gambeson on the arms with what I would assume is steel pauldrons and then gauntlets, so looks pretty decent there. Our legs are a type of brigandine armor as well, at least on the upper thighs, and then going down into steel plate for the knees and greaves. So definitely a very cool looking set of medieval plate armor. This would be something that I feel like would be fairly rare to see in a region like this, just because this would be a significantly expensive suit of armor, and I mean, it makes sense for professional soldiers and knights and nobles to put a lot of money into their armor, but we don't have a whole lot of them in the Oxbow region. So if you're running around wearing this, there's very few other people except for extremely high-end bandits that you're going to run into that have anything comparable to this. It is a full suit, so it's made up of 6 pieces. We have the elite armor, the elite bracers, elite collar, elite greaves, elite helmet, and elite legwear. Now, I'm not certain if this can be purchased anywhere in the game. The way that I obtained it was crafting it, and it's basically the last thing you'll be able to craft. Now, if you specifically push towards development of armor and smithing and stuff like that, as well as extraction to get materials that you're going to need, yes, you can get to it fairly quickly. At least I did once I found out that it existed in the game, but it's definitely a process to get there. So that is the elite armor, which brings us to the end of this video. That's all of the clothing and armor options that are currently available in Medieval Dynasty, at least as far as I've been able to find. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you found it useful or entertaining or something like that. But that's all for today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.